This video is brought to you by Law Excellence IAS Academy.
Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 20th August 2019. The first article for discussion, the far right's disruption of globalization. Now, your author is trying to emphasize is this: the anti-globalization rhetoric by the Trump is not to be constructed as a reversal in time. It means the United States of America and West is not against the globalization. They want to change the globalization to their advantage. And the second, there are some discontented elements in US society, that is farmers and then industrial workers. Mr. Trump is playing a populistic chord or populistic note to tune to them so that he can get into the second term of presidency. So let's understand this way. USA and also Europe, there is a growth of right wing, and most of the supporters of this right wing are from the disgruntled elements of the globalization who are against the immigration, against job losses, and the people who are buying this ultra nationalism and protectionism. But in reality, all these right wing leaders they support capitalistic ideas, capitalism. The Trump grew from this capitalistic notions itself. So the anti-globalization rhetoric is just to capitalize on politics. It is not. There is no inch of truth behind that. There is no inch of commitment towards it. That's what the author is trying to say. Now let us see the USA-China trade war. So US imports around $500 billion and US trade deficit to China is $420 billion. And US accuses China of currency manipulator. So what is the China doing? So China is devaluing its currency so that its exports becomes cheaper. But other side, if we observe, many of the US companies, let's take Apple, it has its manufacturing base in China. So many of the components which are exported to world, iPhones, etc., even to USA which are being exported, these are actually manufactured in China. So most of the exports which are reaching to US to the tune of $220 billion are actually by the United States companies themselves. So these have established a manufacturing basis in China for the reason that the cost of production is very low over there. And the second, the US companies are also manufacturing and exporting it to the other countries. So this also is not taken into consideration. So huge wealth which is created in the United States of America is because of the low cost manufacturing happening in the China. So the indirect consequences of this global trade war are those where US companies will lose their cheap producing manufacturing base. So the second part of this is today, as the trade war is increasing and this rhetoric is increasing, the global supply chains are also getting disrupted. So many of the companies are moving to Taiwan, India, Vietnam, etc. So if it is going to hurt China, it is going to equally hurt United States of America. The second reason is China invests heavily into US Treasury bonds. So if it goes into recession, the China USA both gets equally affected. That other point we need to see in this dimension. Democracy under siege. Remember, the greatest danger to the democracy is populism. This popular rhetoric can transform itself into fascism, and Nazism in Europe is an example of transformation of this populism. So, democracy's biggest danger in the world is populism. So, democracy can convert into a mobocracy. So, in India's democracy, the strength is based on constitutional values and also the adherence to pluralism and plural ideas. So, when constitutional forefathers thought about they are clear in their goal liberty, equality, fraternity. This triad has to guide us. Today, ultranationalism is replacing the entire rhetoric in Indian politics. So, can I put it this way? Today, we talk about Balakot rather than the real issues. There are attacks on minorities and Dalits. These are not being taken very seriously. And Article 370 removal has consequences for federalism. None of the states are talking about it. Removal of Article 370-35A happened midst of the lockdown of the Kashmir. No liberal voices are raising against it. So these are all shows that the populism has entered into a new phase. The middle class, which has supported the liberal values of the constitution during the Nehruvian days, it is behind this ideological change shift towards ultranationalism. So, our constitution clearly states a democracy will sustain only if democratic institutions sustain. But democratic institutions also appears to be in danger. In a parliamentary form of government, executive and legislature they will be in a continuum with each other. Who has to act against them or who has to be the last stop for justice? It is the judiciary. In this matter, the distance between judiciary, executive, and legislature appears to be coming down. That is the first concern. And the second is the constitutional offices, especially CAG, and all these also have become the subservient to the executive to an extent. So their autonomy is in peril. So the populistic tendencies which are coming today have resonates in the voice of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. How good the constitution may be, the people who are implementing the constitution, if they are not good, then nothing can be taken or nothing can be achieved. That's how the Ambedkar has stated. Probably that appears to be coming true. The next is soldier number one. This is about Chief of Defense Staff. So in this case, when Kargil war has happened, so 15 days was the lead time, and many our air force army they were unable to coordinate with each other, and the speed of action got reduced, and it has proven very costly to the armed forces. The loss of life was so huge just because of lack of this coordination. Now, then Subramaniam Committee to review the Kargil issue has come into existence. It has recommended for Chief of Defense Staff. So it is also reflecting the changing landscape of security in South Asia. You see, the Taliban talks are going on, and US is expected to withdraw from Afghanistan. And the second, 373 35-year removal in Kashmir, and the Pakistan rhetoric that is following, Pulwama and Balakot attacks, all this shows that the civilian administration need to be properly guided by a military personnel. And in this context, Chief of Defense Staff is going to be a military advisor to the Defense Minister, and second, to the Cabinet Committee on Security. And he will also be a liaison officer among the three forces so that he can bring in coordination. He will be above all the three officers. And then this Chief of Defense Staff also looks after the procurement, which can bring in efficiencies. So that's why the long demand or whatever long felt need is being approved now. I think it can take or improve the security arrangement in India. Something special. It is about Indo Bhutan relations. Remember something in 2003, Wolfa, terrorists, these were hiding in Bhutan, and Bhutan's king has given free hand to India to eliminate them. When Doklam Plateau issue has come up, the Bhutan stood solidly with India. And third, China is bargaining with the Bhutan to give a triangular space. So, but the Doklam Plateau surrounding region, but Bhutan is not ready for this land transfer. Always Bhutan was sensitive to the concerns of India, and similarly with foreign policy, with developmental needs, both have an equal view and vision for the future. But however, some irritants are coming up. Now, Bhutan is an environment conscious nation. You know that Bhutan calculates something called gross national happiness. So, India is preaching for BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal Transit Motor Vehicle Agreement. And as Pakistan did not come forward, India wants to move with BBIN. If that is the case, tourism, transport network, everything can disturb the forests and environment of Bhutan, which it is not willing to. And the second thing, Bhutan has lot of hydroelectric potential. So India is building the dams over there. And there is a resentment which is growing in that community that India is exploiting the natural resources of Bhutan to its advantage. that perception has to be changed. And India also need to be flexible in pricing those energy needs. Third, previously students of Bhutan used to come to India, so they acted as a glue between these two countries. Now they are traveling across the world. So in this context, India also has to develop better education opportunities on this land for the students of Bhutan. And finally, China, USA, they are trying to make their inroads into Bhutan, and India need to be very and conscious about this. So if you remember, India, Bhutan have the open borders, and if Bhutan becomes a weak state, obviously the problem which we are facing with the Nepal, same would have been faced with the Bhutan too. And the next, crouching tiger, hidden data. So there are 2 points the author is stressing over here. The first is we are still employing the old techniques of counting the tigers, pug marks, etc. We can shift towards the new methods of counting the tigers to improve accuracy. And the second is the forest bureaucracy, which is supposed to conserve the tigers, is also involved with the tiger counting. So it means there is a conflict of interest. So they want to project the numbers if they have to prove themselves as good. So in this scenario, a third party evaluation or open data which has been made available to the people, all this can help for accurate information. These are the two things he talks. India's bid for UN Security Council seat loses speed. So there are four countries, G4 they are called as. They are India, Brazil, Germany, Japan. So these G4 countries, they were trying for permanent seat and reforms in UN Security Council. On the other side, we have another club that is called Coffee Club. Mexico, Pakistan, all these are opposing to this. So in this scenario, India has got bilateral assurance from all the permanent members except China. That is France, USA, UK, and then Russia. They have given assurances to India bilaterally, but in the multilateral forum they are silent. And China, it is not given any assurance till now. So, on what basis India is looking for permanent seat in UN Security Council? One is it is representing one-sixth of the global humanity. And second, the economic powerhouse it is becoming. It is contributing largest contributor to the peacekeeping missions of the UN. So these are the various things India is projecting itself. Above all, if you see European Union is or Europe is overly represented in UN Security Council, and Africa has no representation, and Asia being the largest continent can have representation from two countries. But Japan, US, Japan, India, and China. So there's three countries when they come from Asia. Obviously, that could be problematic. So we have to see how it goes on. Now, so Africa, South Africa is also looking to be a member of this. So even this G4, India, Brazil, Germany, Japan, they have only the members from Asia, Europe, and South America. But where about the members from Africa? That is the question again. So these points you need to look into. Finally, have a great day. All the best.